Okay, I should be back. I don't know what that was about. Like, literally, all I was doing, like, all I did was click over onto my Opera for like a second. And it crashed everything. Literally everything, dude. What the fuck? That was so weird. Like, my Opera browser crashed for some reason. My Discord crashed. My OBS crashed. That was so weird. Anyways, I'm back. Sorry. Let's continue shiny hunting, I guess. That was weird. Here, I'll do this as well. Like I was when we were shiny hunting other things. I'll put like videos on in the background to watch. Okay. Let's see. What's the point? What's going on with the report of the week? What the hell? He's depressed? Oh no. I got my ass kicked. Unlucky. This is the worst thumbnail I've ever seen in my life. Jesus Christ. Why are we... Nothing's been the same since Elden Ring. Sure.
I love playing video games. I don't care.
I hate playing video games. I love playing video games. I hate them. Video games piss me off.
I love playing video games.
I don't
care where, when, what genre, what style, who with, single player or multiplayer. It doesn't matter to me. I love them all. And even if I get less and less time to play them as I get older, I will never stop enjoying the time that I do spend with them. But in the last few years, I've probably played less new games than I ever have before.
Why?
I just haven't been able
I
to
played more
scratch
new
the itch
games
like
than I
I
ever
used
have
to,
before.
And it took me a while to
A lot of
figure out
backlog games
why.
too.
At first, I thought it was
My
just
backlog's
getting
still
older, more
huge.
pessimistic, that there are things that bother me about games now that I might have overlooked as a kid. Or maybe with the number of fantastic games that I've played over the years, maybe I just have higher standards now. But the truth is, it has nothing to do with me. I keep saying that I'm going to play all these other games that I haven't gotten around to yet, and yet every time my girlfriend sticks her head in my room to see if I'm actually doing that, it's always the same story.
What are you doing?
Huh?
What are you doing?
This is my problem. Despite currently being in a golden era of video game releases, I just can't seem to move on from one game in particular. It's just that nothing's quite been the same since Elden Ring.
I like the vibe of the video. I like the sentiment of the video. But I kind of disagree. For me, since Elden Ring, I have found some of my favorite games of all time. Elden Ring introduced me to all the other Souls games, all the Dark Souls games, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Demon Souls, Souls-likes by other companies, Lies of P, and all of those games have become my favorite genre of all time. So for me, yeah, sure, nothing's been the same since Elden Ring, but in a completely different way, where like he's clearly saying like none of these other games are scratching the same itch. I have found so many other games that do scratch that same itch. I found a whole genre of games that scratch that same itch. So it's like for me it's literally the opposite, where it's like because of Elden Ring so many other games opened up to me, where from what he has said so far, it sounds like he's saying since Elden Ring nothing else has like satisfied him to that extent, and I couldn't disagree more. Elden Ring was a doorway for me into like something greater. Bloodborne. Bloodborne is just so much better. I love Elden Ring, but my goodness, Bloodborne.
can't seem to move on from one game in particular.
Plus, even talking about other genres, I have been able to move on to other games. I have fallen in love with other games arguably more than Elden Ring. Clair Obscur this year, Metaphor Refantasio last year, Persona 3 Reload last year, dude. Oh my god, I love Persona 3.
Of video game releases, I just can't seem to move on from one game in particular. It's just that nothing's quite been the same since Elden Ring.
I like the editing of this video already, though. Very good vibes.
I don't reckon it's unusual for a lot of gamers to have a certain world they like to revisit. For me, Elden Ring has been on my hard drive for 3.5 years. And
for me, it's Lies of P. I've gone through Lies of P so many times. Kingdom Hearts, another game series that I've just gone through so many times. The Nier games I've gone through so many times. Bloodborne I've gone through so many times. Elden Ring, I would go through more times. It's just way too big of a game. Giant open world games like that take like 200 hours to play, unfortunately, I can't replay them. I just can't replay games that are that long. I just can't do it. If Elden Ring was like a shorter linear experience like Bloodborne, I would have replayed it a million times. I replayed it like one time to get the other ending, and it wasn't even like a full replay. It was just me rushing through, only doing the main bosses that I needed to and ignoring everything. And so like for me, because of Elden Ring's size, I can't replay it.
no game I've ever played keeps reeling me back to it quite like this one does. And on my most recent revisit back to it, I really started to think about why. Why is it that I have this whole back catalogue of games that I still need to play, including the other Souls games, by the way, but yet they continue...
He hasn't played the other Souls games, motherfucker. Play those. You're saying nothing else has scratched that itch for you? Dude, Bloodborne will surpass that itch. I promise you it will. Bloodborne will surpass that itch. Dark Souls 3 will feel like a very familiar itch if you really like Elden Ring. Dark Souls 3 is the closest in terms of feeling like Elden Ring. Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, and especially Dark Souls 2 will rock your shit in if you're going straight to them from Elden Ring. Because Elden Ring is so fast-paced, and after I did Elden Ring, it was my first Souls game. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to all of the other Souls games by FromSoft. I'm going to do them all in order. So I went all the way back to Demon Souls. And going from their newest game, which is incredibly fast-paced and on crack, to their first crack, their first try at making a Souls game. Whoa. Okay, that's not entirely true. After Elden Ring, I went to Bloodborne first, but that's just because I already tried Bloodborne years ago, in like when it first came out, and I fell off it hard because of how hard it was. I only went back to it because of Elden Ring. So technically Elden Ring wasn't my first Souls game, it was just the first I beat. But I went back to Bloodborne. Bloodborne's even faster than Elden Ring. So I went from Elden Ring, which is on fucking crack with how fast it is, to Bloodborne, which was even faster and even crazier, to their first attempt at making a Souls game, Demon Souls. And oh my god, the mental readjustments that had to take place to play that fucking game. Once I did adjust, though, I learned to fucking love it. I adore Demon Souls, dude. I adore all the Souls all the Souls games, including my least favorite, Dark Souls. Is Dark Souls 2 my least favorite? You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know. I've always said Dark Souls 2 is my least favorite. Demon Souls might be, actually. I think if I were to replay one, I would rather play Dark Souls 2. Yeah. Yeah. I think I would rather replay Dark Souls 2. And that's not to say I dislike either of them. I like both of them. It's just I've always said I like Demon Souls more than Dark Souls 2, but now that I'm thinking about it right now, I don't know if that's true. Hmm. 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 That's weird to think about, but like genuinely, I think it's because I played Demon Souls like 3 times, and so I just have no interest in replaying it. But Dark Souls 2 I've only ever played once. It's the only Souls game I played 1 time. Well, that and I played Sekiro 1 time, but that's just because Sekiro doesn't have different builds. Uh, like you don't have your own custom character in Sekiro, so like you can't just make like another character and do a different build on a second run. So that's why I never replayed Sekiro. But Dark Souls 2, I did make a second character, like I always do. I always make a main character that is either Dex or Strength or a mix of both. And then I do a second character, which is always an Int or Faith build. So I do like a melee character, then a magic character. And I made a magic character on Dark Souls 2, like all the other games. But I just never even beat a single boss with it. I don't know. I'd like to someday. I'd like to
Elden Ring over and
give
over and
Dark Souls
over
2
again. So on
another
my last
playthrough.
I played with the intent to get to the bottom of what makes the game so special. What is it about this game in particular that has managed to bury itself so deep into my brain? And I realized that it isn't anything in particular. I still don't really have an answer. I can't put my finger on exactly what it does so well because I don't think Elden Ring does any one thing leagues better than any of its contemporaries, and yet somehow the game as a whole
It does
still
everything
is.
better.
So rather than coming up with some
What do you mean?
objective analytical breakdown video that honestly plenty of others have done before me, I instead want to work through what parts of the game stood out to me on my last playthrough and retrace my steps through my experience with the game as a whole. And I'm hoping by doing that, maybe I can finally understand why Elden Ring has sunk its hooks in so deeply to me. Before Elden Ring, I had never played any of the Souls games. Just
Same.
because,
Well,
if
that's-
I'm being completely honest,
I can't say same, because I did play like the first, up to the first boss of Bloodborne before Elden Ring. But like I said, after that first boss in Bloodborne, I kind of just stopped playing the game because I didn't like how hard it was at the time.
they really did not appeal to me.
It wasn't
And I mean,
until
can you
Elden
really
Ring
blame
where
me?
I understood
the reputation of these games
how the
is that they are
challenge
notoriously
is fun
unforgiving
and actually
difficult,
enjoyed that
designed
it was hard.
specifically to test your mental stamina. And jeez, the way people talk about these games.
I love the pain.
I love
The intensity it takes to really enjoy and
I
get
do
the
now.
most
I
out of these games
unironically
can be
love the
kind of
pain.
intimidating to a lot
love
of
the
new
pain.
players. So you can understand, from the outside looking in on the series, being pitched on a game's brutal punishment just wasn't something I found that alluring. But in 2022, when the reviews for Elden Ring came rolling in, I finally decided to give From Software a chance to win me over. I figured I'd play games. I'm not opposed to cranking the difficulty every once in a while. How hard could it be? And I hated it.
I just can't do it.
I can't put my finger on exactly what it was I disliked about it so much, but I just couldn't connect with it on account of it being so different than anything else I'd played. I felt oddly loose and weightless during combat in a way that I didn't with other games, because despite From Software's design being massively influential on the industry at large,
Okay,
it still
I massively
maintained a
disagree with that weightless statement. I think Souls combat is some of the most weighty combat there is. Like, every hit has so much impact behind it. It's why I fucking love it so much. Is every hit feels like it matters. Every dodge feels like it matters. Like, everything you do feels like this is the most important move of my life. And all I'm doing is swinging a sword, but my god, it feels so important right now.
Feeling and style that is wholly unique from anything else.
Fucking bullshit! How is he fucking hitting the dodge button? He's a fucking AI.
In other words, I had never felt so shit at a video game that I expected to be better at. And on top of feeling like a fish out of water with the combat, I also found that Elden Ring's open world design was actually more demoralizing than I would have found with a more linear experience like Dark Souls, which I know is the exact opposite of the prevailing sentiment in the community. But for me, instead of
Yeah, for me, I have like the very common, the very common experience that a lot of people had with Elden Ring, where it was easier to approach than other Souls games because of it being an open world, where it's like if you were struggling on a boss, you could just go somewhere else and then come back later. And you can't really do that in any other Souls game. You just kind of have to beat your head against a wall in every other Souls game. And you don't really have to do that in Elden Ring at all. And that's why Elden Ring was like easy for me to get into. It's why it didn't push me away like Bloodborne did, and was able to be a doorway into the rest of the genre, because the open world. So again, I really disagree with this guy. My experience with Elden Ring was the complete opposite.
Feeling like I could just go do something else when a boss halted my progress, I instead felt like it didn't matter where I went or what I did, I still sucked. Because of the open world design, I never felt the game really pressuring me all that much to persevere through a tough boss when the option was always there to just leave and level up somewhere else. Which kind of meant I kept robbing myself of the opportunity to get better and actually overcome the frustration that I was persistently feeling. After everything I had heard about From Software, I was so disappointed that it didn't grab me like I wanted it to. So after a few hours of wandering through the lands between, I put the game down. I forget exactly why I picked it back up, but it was sometime after some people started calling it one of the greatest games of all time that I decided to give it another chance. I figured with all the adoration that the game was receiving, it was definitely me who was missing something, not the game. Some way, somehow, I knew it was my fault that I didn't love it. And so if I was going to, this is the mindset I was going to adopt. In Australia, we have a saying, we're not here to fuck spiders. There's actually a few versions of that, but it just means
We're not here to
mess
fuck
around or do anything that
spiders.
isn't exactly the task.
Dude, what is what is wrong with Australians?
I was not going to give up against any
Aussie,
boss. No,
come
matter
get
what.
your kind
Keep in
out of
mind,
here.
given I still
Come get
very
these
much sucked at the
Australians
game,
out of
this was
here.
probably a
What the
horrible
hell?
mindset
These
to
goddamn
adopt so
Aussies.
religiously, but there I went
Pejorative.
anyway, and I started a new game with this
Goddamn
newfound
Aussies
conviction.
slash
And while I couldn't
negative.
really do anything about
I'm
the grafted
racist towards
styling, since it doesn't let you
Australians.
attempt it more than once, the tree sentinel.
Get their
and I
kind
could
out of
take it.
here. They're
Now, I
fucking
understand and
spiders.
understood at the time
What
that
the
tree sentinel is
hell?
not a boss you are really supposed to beat so early in the game. And me attempting it is a bit like a Jack Russell nipping at the hooves of a horse. The tree sentinel's placement here is specifically to teach the player that not every boss you encounter is one you are going to be prepared for at that moment. That it's okay to walk away and come back when you're actually ready. In this instance, especially if you are a beginner like me, you are supposed to walk away. But no, I, a player who died multiple times to the soldier of Godric, would
How?
not leave this ditch
How do
until
you do
I did
that?
the impossible.
How do you die to the
After
soldier of
first
Godric?
20 or 30 deaths
I didn't
in
know
a
that
row,
was
I lost
possible.
count. It felt like a completely insurmountable challenge, but it was nonetheless a challenge I had started. And in my mind, it doesn't beat me when it kills me. It only beats me if I quit. So for several exhausting,
that's a Souls game.
demoralizing hours, I grinded
Quitting
this
a Souls
boss,
game
honing
is
what
going
little
hollow.
skills I had in a boss fight I had absolutely no business being in. But
As long as you keep
slowly,
trying in a
I
Souls game, your
started
character
to
doesn't
get
go
better.
hollow like
First
all
thing
the
I
other
learned
characters
was
in the game.
Not to panic. I learned which attacks I could and couldn't dodge through, and when my openings were to attack myself. How many swings I could safely wail on it before I even, by complete accident, learnt this little maneuver I could use to give myself more openings. And ever so gradually, I began putting the pieces together of what I had learnt, and with each attempt, whittling his health down just a little bit further and further and further, until finally, I did it. Words don't describe the feeling of relief, disbelief, and accomplishment I felt in that final blow. I can't even guess how many times I faced the Tree Sentinel, but it was only in that last handful did winning the fight even feel doable. Throughout the countless thousands of hours I have spent playing video games in my life, I can't think of a single moment within any of them that was more personally meaningful to me. It was in that moment that From Software won me over, and I was absolutely in love with Elden Ring. And the best part of it all was that I had barely even started.
Yeah, that's like... That boss is literally 5 feet in front of the tutorial. So he was literally 5 steps out of the tutorial cave. God, I love Elden Ring. It's so good.
In that first playthrough, I was so enamored by everything the game was doing so well that it kind of just washed over me in a way that I didn't really consciously notice or think about. I was just too busy having too much fun. I just knew it was good and I didn't really have the words to describe how. If you were to try and explain to someone who's never played games before why you love Red Dead Redemption 2, you'd probably say it has a gripping story with incredible characters and writing and an absolutely gorgeous open world that you can get lost in for hours. Most titles have an easy elevator pitch like that, but with Elden Ring, you know what I mean? Like, what I was loving about it was far more abstract and personal than what other games bring to the table. It's not what the game was doing that made me feel a certain way, it's what I was doing in the game that made me feel a certain way. And that's kind of harder to articulate. But that hasn't stopped me from really wondering what that elevator pitch would be. And yes, this is going to be a long fucking elevator ride. But it's been long enough for me now, and I've thought about it enough that I think I've figured it out. I think there's 7 main reasons that I and so many others have fallen so deeply in love with this particular experience. And it all starts right here. That first fight with the Tree Sentinel taught me everything I need to know about Elden Ring and From Software games in general. No matter how bullshit, absurd, or unfair a fight might feel, it is always possible. If I was patient enough, I could overcome anything. That's the lesson I learned from that fight, that I needed to focus far more on improving myself rather than my stats and abilities. Get good, which famously can be a punishing design philosophy that really risks turning some players away. But for the ones who stay and persevere all the way through Margit, Godric, Radahn, Renala, Rykard, Mohg, Morgott, Malekith, Godfrey, Radagon, Elden Beast, Malenia, there's nothing else in gaming quite like it for me, other than maybe Ogdo Bogdo. But it's the
What?
fact that I can rattle off those
The fuck
names
is an
and you have
Ogdo
vaguely
Bogdo?
a distinct visceral memory of facing each one of them,
What?
along with countless others. I just think that speaks to how special Elden Ring's challenge is, and it made me
Ogdo
understand
Bogdo.
why the community is the way that it is. Shared triumph. And I
The community can be one of the best communities, but it can also be one of the worst communities. And what I mean by one of the worst is the FromSoft community is so anti-criticism of any of the games. Like, to them, all the games are flawless masterpieces that have nothing wrong with them. And if you ever dare say that there's even 1% of something that could be criticized in the game, then you should be killed and like hung in real life.
know that a bunch of random people waffling away about builds and bosses in a Reddit thread, that seems like an element of the experience that's removed from the game itself, but it's kind of not. Constantly seeing the phantoms of other players navigating the path alongside me, or the helpful or not so helpful messages they litter around the world, that brings it to life in such an interesting way that in this single player game, I never really feel like I'm playing it by myself. Walking into a boss arena and seeing it absolutely soaked in the bloodstains of my fallen brothers and sisters, that is always a chilling, intimidating sight that I feel unprepared for the beatdown I'm about to receive. But every time seeing those bloodstains, it kind of makes me want to rise to avenge them, because these people clearly didn't quit, so neither would I.
Except they could have quit. You
The
don't
thing
know
is,
if they
though,
did or didn't.
Everything I've said about the game so far isn't all
No, they
that
might have
unique
quit.
to Elden Ring. Most of this stuff is baked into From Software's DNA, and plenty of those ideas have seeped into the industry at large as well. What makes Elden Ring different, though, is how it takes From Software's very specific but brilliant existing formula and grafts it to some of the industry's most successful ideas. And the first and easily the most obvious one is the open world. And not this open world, but this one. Elden Ring being influenced by Breath of the Wild is pretty well documented at this point, but I think so much so, and with how obvious that influence is, that it is kind of hard to talk about Elden Ring at all without at least giving Zelda a nod. Breath of the Wild, and subsequently Elden Ring, heavily leans into the idea that you should all—
The difference is, Elden Ring took the formula of open world that Breath of the Wild created and actually made it good. Breath of the Wild's open world is 99% fucking empty, and then the other 1% are fucking Korok seeds. It's the worst. It's one of the worst open worlds ever if you actually look at like the content that's in it. It is one of the most beautiful open worlds ever. And your first time through it, you're kind of like blown away by it. But once you're done with it, once you think about going through it again, once you think about what you actually did in it, Once you think about doing it again in a second game, Tears of the Kingdom, you might not feel as excited to go through it again, knowing how little there is to actually do in said open world. It is very empty. It is one of the most empty open worlds ever, and it's why I never fucking finished Tears of the Kingdom. Because I played like 20, 30 hours of that game, and I was like, I'm just doing this again, and I can't do this again. I'm bored. And so I never finished it.
Always look under the stairs. I forget
Elden Ring, though, took that same formula of open world and made it so there's something fucking everywhere. It is one of the most full open worlds to its fault. It's the reason I can't ever replay Elden Ring. There's too much. There's too much in the open world. I can never find it all again. I never found it all the first time. There was definitely shit I missed. I can never do it all again. It's too much.
Where I first heard the phrase, but it just refers to the practice of checking underneath the staircase you just walk down, because the developers will usually hide some sort of useful or valuable item, despite the design of the level clearly coaxing the player to continue moving past it. It's a way of encouraging exploration by tucking value into places that players might otherwise overlook, effectively rewarding players for their own natural curiosity. In an open world game like Elden Ring or Breath of the Wild, looking under the stairs is far less specific than actually looking under a staircase. The game doesn't outright tell you where you are supposed to go, so actually progressing necessitates that you navigate your own path through the open world to a certain extent, and only really relies on discrete visual cues and clever framing to nudge you in the right direction. And because of that design, you are basically forced to engage with and explore the environment a lot more actively than you would in a game like Assassin's Creed. So with your eyes already on the horizon, it's pretty much inevitable that you'll see something that's worth investigating that's clearly unrelated to the main objective. And the beauty of how these games are designed is that you're never more than like a minute away from actually finding something interesting. And that's just it, finding. Like actually finding. Because there's next to no hand-holding, no map markers or waypoints, it makes the stuff that you do find, whether that be dungeons, bosses, or other useful items, they feel like genuine discoveries. Because nothing other than your natural curiosity led you to find them. This obviously means that an absolutely enormous amount of the content will be missed in the process, but the risk of not finding something is what makes finding something actually special. The game's most famous example of this being the Schiefer Riverwell in Mistwood, a relatively unassuming building that's still conspicuous enough amongst its surrounding environment that it's worth investigating anyway. And yet at the bottom of it is this. The sheer idea that I could have completely missed this had I not noticed this boring building makes it feel like a truly miraculous discovery. And it made me wonder, what else is the game hiding? What else is it not telling me? This looking under the stairs concept obviously isn't just unique to open world games like Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild. Most notably, I think it might be best used in survival horror, where you often have to decide between progressing to safety or risking further anxiety to look around for items that might help you in the next area, adding a thick risk-reward factor to exploration. But unlike Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring implements this version of the concept as well, with From Software's classic soul retrieval mechanic. The risk of dying too far off the beaten track can result in your runes getting stuck in some tough to reach places, or guarded by a battalion of very annoying enemies. But risky exploration is still often worth the effort, and sometimes it's not. This whole explorative part of the game is still such a perfect, serene counterweight to the high-stress component of Elden Ring's boss encounters. And while it might not be the most exciting part of the game, it is easily the part you get the most lost in because the world building is outstanding. Elden Ring is cut from a lot of the same cloth as Bethesda's Elder Scrolls and Fallout.
What?
Yeah, look, I know. Just stay with me for a second. For all of
I'm
Bethesda's
not staying with you on
jank
that.
and
I'm not
bug,
staying with you on
worlds
that,
still
buddy.
feel
No, I'm
incredibly
not staying
immersive
with
and
you on that.
atmospheric.
What the hell?
Most of the story
Hell
and
no.
lore being told
Comparing
through the
Bethesda
environment.
to
Whenever you stumble
FromSoft
into
is
a crumbling
crazy.
ruin
What an
or
insult to
abandoned family home,
FromSoft.
you still
Fuck
feel
you,
like you've
dude.
stumbled onto a story that was there long before
What the
you
hell?
arrived. These games really
That's
feel
so
like
insulting.
they sell the idea that they are worlds that exist without you in it. It's the whole reason it works, that they're more than just a playground that's built for the player to explore. And that immersion into the world is why you can just waste hours away wandering through it. Now, Elden Ring taps taps into much of the same concept, but it covers it with FromSoft's more cryptic coat of paint. And here's the thing, I'll be completely honest, I don't really care about the lore. And
So I know there's like a very small portion of FromSoft fans who have the same mindset. I know Maximilian Dude for most of the Souls games outside of Bloodborne has the same mindset. And every time I hear someone bring this up, where it's like they love the games, they're some of their favorite games ever, but they don't care about the lore, it's like, why? Like that, I don't understand that mindset, because to me, that is like the antithesis of being a human being. And I mean that I don't mean that in like a mean way, because like Maximilian Dude feels this way towards the Souls games, and I don't mean to like insult him, but truly I don't understand how you're a human being and you have this mindset. Because being a human being, the most unique part about being a human being is experiencing art and stories that other people created. And for you to play a game that you love, that you have so much fun with, that you put dozens and hundreds of hours into, and to say you just don't care about the story of it, you just don't care about the lore, and you just don't engage with it at all, I could never understand that mindset. It's a very similar... I have the same feelings towards people who play Destiny only for like the PvP, or like only to do the raids or whatever, and then they like skip all the cutscenes whenever an expansion comes out. It's like, why the fuck are you even playing this game if you don't care about the story and you don't care about the lore? Like, if you love this game so much, why would you not love it? Because when I love a game, I love the game. I engage with every part of the game, because that is being a human being. That is experiencing a piece of art. Fully immersing yourself and allowing you to feel and experience what the creator wanted you to feel and experience is the most human thing you can do. And to say that you just don't care about that, I genuinely view you as less of a human being. Because that goes against what being a person is. That goes against what having emotions and empathy and curiosity even is. That goes against everything that art is. Like, that is so anti-art, anti-storytelling to just be like, I don't care. I played this game over and over again. I love it. I put hundreds of hours into it. I just can't move on. No other game has ever impacted me like Elden Ring. But I don't care about the lore. Like, what? What do you mean? What? It's like watching like a super artsy film, right? Like a super high caliber Oscar award winning film, and saying, yeah, I had fun. The visuals were cool, but I just didn't care about the story. What? Then you didn't like the movie. What do you mean? If you don't care about the art within the media, within the piece of art that you are experiencing, then you don't love it. I hate to break it to you, but you don't. Because if you don't care about it that much, you don't love it. And if you think you do love it, then why do you refuse to engage with it? Why do you refuse to show that love for it? I don't fucking get it. It makes me so mad whenever people say this shit about Souls games, because they say it a lot. And don't get me wrong, there have been games in the past where it's like, I'm having fun in the game, and like I don't really care about the story. Recent example from this year, Lost Soul Aside. But the difference is, it's not like in Lost Soul Aside I was actively saying, oh, I don't care about the story, I'm just going to skip all the cutscenes, it doesn't matter. I was still trying to engage with the story, regardless of how much I didn't like it. And I think what's worse than not liking a story is what this guy's saying. I don't care about it. Is an apathy towards it. How can you have apathy towards something you claim to love? It's a mindset I will never understand, because it goes against everything I view as being a human being, dude. Being a human being is engaging with things that other human beings created and feeling even a fraction of what another person has felt. It is the purest form, the only form of another human being able to let you feel even a fraction of what they feel. It is the best way, the only way to convey to another person what you have within yourself. And to go against that, to say you don't care about that, is insane to me. It is the best way, the only way we as human beings have to deeply understand each other on a way deeper than words can convey. It is so not just anti-art, but anti-human itself to say you don't care about that, especially when you love the game. Because when I love something, especially a piece of art, I love that thing. I will never understand that mindset. It is genuinely the equivalent of people who only watch anime with like cool fight scenes and don't care about the story. It's like, how? How does your brain work that way? You just want flashing colors? That's all you care about? Like, fucking hell. I don't get it, man. I don't fucking get it. Even a lot of speedrunners in games and stuff, and like they are truly, like the speedrunners of the Souls games, they are truly only there for the gameplay. Even most of them still care about the lore and story. Because they love this game so much, they dedicate so much time to speedrunning it, that of course they love the lore, of course they love the story. Most of them still love the fucking story, still love these games. Most of them play through the games normally the first few times and don't even think about speedrunning until long after they have already fallen in love with it. So to just admit, just straight out, that you just don't care about the lore is crazy to me. I've never understood that mindset when it comes to this like very, very minor subsect of Souls fans, because it is a minor one. Most people do care about the story, even if they don't understand it all because they don't watch like a lot of YouTube videos or they don't read every single lore entry. They still care about it to an extent, even if they don't understand it all. To say you just don't really care about the lore is, I don't get it. I'll move on, but like literally, I've said my piece. I genuinely think you are less of a person for thinking this about any piece of art.
That these people are all related, and that this lady is like sick or something and mean. But I'm not one of these people using item descriptions to piece together an entire timeline. And if you're into that, that's fine. I'm not here to judge. Some people collect stamps, others like to read stuff in the video games they play. That's just not why I'm here. But personally for me, I don't...
Yeah, imagine engaging with the game you're playing. Imagine engaging with something you're claiming to love. Imagine loving something so deeply that you just want to show your love with it and engage with the love that was put into it by another human being. That just made my opinion of this guy even more solidified, that I think you're less of a person for thinking this, man. And I don't mean that in like a mean way to dehumanize you. I mean, I think the way your brain works and the way you emotionally attach to art and interact with it is antithetical to what art is and what being a person who interacts with art is.
Feel like I need to have all the answers for everything in the environment for me to still be incredibly intrigued by it. Because even without getting really stuck into the lore, it's still so evident that it's there, adding this dense layer of genuine authenticity and consistency to the world that is just dripping with atmosphere as a result. I mean, look at this. I feel like I'm in a painting. This is going to be a really quick point despite it being really no less important than the other ones, but notice the aesthetic diversity on display here.
That line about I feel like I'm in a painting, yeah, let's compare it to a painting then. What he's doing is essentially going to a museum, looking at a painting, and just judging it off of like a snap decision. Does it look cool or not? And not trying to engage with like, well, what was the artist's intent? What was the message behind this painting? What was the emotion behind this painting? What did they feel and what did they want me to feel with this painting? What are the different artistic methods and techniques that they use for this painting, and why did they choose to make this painting this way? Why did they choose the framing for this painting? Why did they choose the subject matter for the painting in general? What he's doing is just looking at a painting and being like, yeah, it looks cool. I don't think you can say you love the painting. I don't think you can say you love the game if you haven't actually shown love for it. I don't get it. To each their own. Everybody can play games however they want. But to me, if I were to play a game as many times as he's claiming he's replayed it over and over since it's come out and has never stopped playing it over the past 3 years. If I've played a game that much and I didn't care about its story, I wouldn't be playing it that much. I just wouldn't be. If I'm going to replay a game that much, it has to be a game I love everything in. Every part of it. To replay a game that much, to claim you love a game that much, to love any piece of art that much, and then not engage with the main method of engaging with that piece of art is crazy. Like, I'm sorry, I'll move on. I can't get over that, though. That's really... It's antithetical to the way I view just anything. Because even Pokemon, I'm just shiny hunting in a Pokemon game right now. But I wouldn't give a fuck to grind in this game, to shiny hunt in this game, if I didn't care about this game as a piece of art. I think the story, overall story, I think like the individual stories of Pokemon games can sometimes be pretty weak, but I think the overall lore of the Pokemon world is really fucking neat. I think it's really cool. And that's why I engage with it, you know? That's why I continue to engage with these games. It's because I think they're fun, and I want to engage with their stories. I want to engage with them as a piece of art, because there are real people that work on these, as much as they're hindered by corporate meddlings, as much as they're hindered by deadlines and rushed out and unfinished a lot of the times. I see the instances where there is love in them. I do. It's not many. Trust me, it's not. But I see it. I see it. It's under there. It's in there. And I want to engage with it. Even games where I truly, if you asked me, do I give a fuck about the story of Pokemon ZA? Not really. But do I give a fuck about Pokemon as a whole? Do I give a fuck about the overall story of the Pokemon series and the world building that it has? Yeah, I do. And so that makes me care about the story in this more. I do like the story in ZA, despite me being like, all right, some of these quests are filler, whatever. To just say you don't care about something like that, it's just insane to me. It's insane. Because I wouldn't engage with this game if I didn't care about it as a piece of art, if I didn't care about its world building or story or any of that. I wouldn't engage with any game if I didn't care about it, if I didn't want to engage with it, even if I end up not liking it, right? Like Lost Soul aside, where I end up not liking the story. Even if it's something like that, where I end up not liking with it, I still engaged with it. I don't just like brush it off and be like, well, I don't care about it, and then keep playing. I still engaged with it the entire time I was playing because I was having fun with the game. And because I was having fun with the game, I was still willing to engage with the story despite it being just meh. Even if, like, the story isn't your cup of tea, if you really love a game that much, why would you not engage with it? Same with the Pokemon games, like the weaker Pokemon stories. I like these games so much that, like, why wouldn't I engage with the stories? Why wouldn't I? Why else would I be playing the game?
Limgrave, Caelid, Liurnia, Altus, the mountaintops, even smaller areas like Nokron and the Halig Tree, each one feels so completely different, and that kind of variety makes it sort of easier to mentally organize. So each chapter of the game as you progress through it is made far more memorable than it would have been if it had taken place in a more uniform setting. And again, designing a massive open world with this philosophy isn't an unusual practice in gaming, and likely another thing that Miyazaki has partly adapted from Breath of the Wild. But I feel the visual variety is stepped up here in a way that makes those first steps into these environments.
Yeah,
feel
I
just as
agree.
exhilarating
Elden Ring
as
is
beating
definitely the
boss.
most visually diverse one. Sorry, I didn't actually see if it was blue or green. Blue, okay. It is definitely the most visually diverse one. Another one that comes close is Dark Souls 2, actually. Dark Souls 2 is very visually diverse. Kind of to its fault. It's not visually diverse in like the same way as Elden Ring is, where Elden Ring is just such a massive world that you're able to have such visually diverse environments all over it. Dark Souls 2 is visually diverse because its map makes no fucking sense, and areas that should not be connected to each other are connected to each other. So you go from like the most egregious example is you're climbing this tower in like this poison swamp area, and then the top of the tower connects to a volcano somehow. Volcano castle in the sky. I don't know. Dark Souls 2's map just makes no sense and randomly just transitions to a different area without it actually making sense. So Dark Souls 2 is like the second most visually diverse one, but honestly not in a good way. It's actually like one of the biggest faults about Dark Souls 2 is that it had a troubled development, and so there was a bunch of areas that were just added to the game and don't make sense where they are. And just is like, well, that's not... How is this supposed to be connected? Like, the map makes no fucking sense in Dark Souls 2. Demon's Souls is also pretty visually diverse because of it being like separate maps entirely, where none of the maps are connected to each other.
At the end of it, they are simply
And as much as Dark Souls 1 is also pretty visually diverse, Bloodborne's pretty visually consistent because it all takes place within one city. Dark Souls 3 is pretty visually consistent. It has a couple diverse areas, but for the most part it's very similar looking castles, and I don't dislike that, and a lot of people say that about Dark Souls 3 as a downside, where a lot of the game looks visually the same. I don't mind it. I think it looks really good. My favorite Souls game is Bloodborne, and that all takes place within one city, dude. So it's like, I don't really care if things are visually the same throughout. Even Dark Souls 1 is pretty visually consistent through everything and isn't like super varied like Elden Ring is, where it's like, oh my god, these areas look like they could be from different fucking games. Sorry, I have to use the restroom. I was responding to Sophie. Here, let me go in the game and unmute it so there's some music playing. I'm gonna go use the bathroom. I need to respond to some messages real quick. So I'll be right back. Give me a few minutes. Okay, sorry, that was way longer than I thought it would be. I had to like wait for someone to get out of the bathroom before I could get in there. And then I was petting my cat, got some water, and I saw they were baking some cookies downstairs, my sisters and my mom. Oh, they're making like a bunch of like cookies and stuff for Christmas in a couple days. So I stole one. Yippee. Alright, let's finish this video up. Also gotta turn my controller back on.
A game's
Soundtrack!
is something I think that often goes
Dude, FromSoft soundtracks are like the best soundtracks in any game ever. There's very few games where I like the music more than FromSoft.
underappreciated when considering the replayability of certain games. Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, Red Dead Redemption, The Last of Us, Minecraft, even shooters like Battlefield and Halo. We tend to talk about these games'
Oh, sorry, I
greatest
thought I was on the
strengths
wrong
being
screen for a
within the
second. My
gameplay.
bad.
And obviously, yeah, duh. But every single one of them has absolutely banging soundtracks that play a monumental role in how we remember and think about being in those worlds. Elden Ring is no different in this regard. The music and sound design are incredible, but it is somewhat unique in that it isn't as memorably iconic as
I'm gonna have to look up a video
are.
after
And I
this
don't
to
think
see if
it's
I'm
meant to
doing
be.
this
Soundtracks typically
Latios
fall under the category of non-diegetic sound,
reload
which
at the
just
right
refers to
spot.
sound
If I'm
that
not doing
doesn't
it at the right
actually
spot, I'll
exist
have to
within the world. Like Batman can't hear
redo
his
it.
own theme. There are some exceptions where the soundtracks are diegetic, like previously mentioned in Fallout, where it's tied to an in-game radio station that the characters listen to. But Elden Ring does something really interesting, where it kind of blends the two.
Soundtrack is diegetic in Persona 3. The main character Makoto is always wearing headphones and has an MP3 player around his neck. And so the soundtrack you hear in the game for Persona 3 is what he's listening to in the sound in his headphones. It's also diegetic in Metaphor. The music is constantly what is playing inside Will's head, and the music like gives him determination to fight. They like always give like a lore reason in the Atlas games. At least recently they have in like the Persona games and Metaphor, for why the music is there. It's usually either playing inside the protagonist's head, either through a spell or through just them imagining it, or through like them having like an actual MP3 player.
Together. It is still a non-diegetic soundtrack, but if you listen to it on Apple Music or Spotify, it doesn't land quite the same way as those other ones do because, well, you sort of just have to be there. It's a soundtrack that strangely seems to emanate from the landscape in front of you. And I'm not talking about ambient sounds from the environment like birds or trees. It is still music that you're listening to, but it somehow gives the impression that that music is what you might hear if you were actually standing there. It's a really weird, almost hypnotic effect. But as a result, I can't think of another soundtrack that's made me feel more engrossed, more immersed in a game's world than the one in this game. So far,
Motherfucker hasn't played Bloodborne
well,
or
we've
any other
discussed the
Souls game.
difficulty
It's
and
like
the
that in all
community
of
that
them.
has built around that, the sense of exploration and discovery, the world building and atmosphere, the stunning visual and aesthetic variety, and the unbelievable music and sound design. But here's the thing, all of that is just the stage. And it would mean a lot less if that stage felt the same every time you replayed it. But what makes it feel different, what makes it endlessly replayable, is how much of your experience changes based on how you decide to approach it, right from the very beginning. Your experience with Elden Ring each time you play it is so dependent on the build you commit to making because the stats, weapons, spells, even basic playstyles are so varied that you're not just rerunning the same game again, you're essentially playing a new one. Bosses you might have been thrashed by the first time are now an absolute cakewalk, and others you previously trivialized are now a brick wall. This shift in exactly where you face the most challenge often changes how you approach the game altogether. It might result in you fighting bosses not just in a completely different way, but also maybe even a completely different order. It might mean that you spend more time in certain areas that you didn't previously, or take a different route through the lands between entirely. All of this gives you a chance to find new weapons, armor, spells, quests, bosses, or even new areas entirely. This is the main reason why returning to Elden Ring is so uniquely rewarding and exciting every time, and why no matter how many times I come back to it, it just never gets stale. Most of the time for me, my allure back to a certain game comes from just one or two elements in it that I found particularly memorable. But in Elden Ring, most of my allure back to it comes specifically from the experiences I feel I haven't had yet. It's how I don't know how all of these elements are going to come together for me on my next playthrough. And it isn't just that they all feed into each other in a way that makes Elden Ring greater than just the sum of them together, but also how those elements seem to rearrange themselves in how I perceive and remember them each time I go back. It's how the game always stays so fresh and why it's just so fucking addictive. Which kind of brings me all the way back to the main question that I keep circling around. Why can't I move on? There's so
I don't know,
many
man.
new and old games out there that I still
Hyperfixation,
haven't played that
autism.
I'm sure I would absolutely love. And as I said earlier, Elden Ring doesn't do any one
Also,
thing that
talking
much
about new
better than
games and
anything
showing
else.
Bioshock
There's
is
a number
crazy.
of games out there that do any one of these things just as well or even better. But none
The
of them
Obscure
do
was fair,
all
though.
of these things
Play
at
that
once
game.
quite as well as Elden Ring does. For me, it's this perfect blend of everything I've ever loved about games, distilled into one complete experience. And that's why I keep returning to it. Whenever I need any of these itches scratched, why would I go anywhere other than the lands between? However,
For something
you'd
new?
think after
I don't know.
3 years,
I don't like
I'd have
having new
exhausted everything the
experiences.
game
That's
has to
me
offer.
personally.
Every nook, every cranny,
That's why I
every
don't replay
cave,
games that
catacomb,
much.
build, and
I like
boss,
new
but
experiences.
I haven't. In fact, there's a pretty
Even if I end up
massive
liking
thing
that
I haven't
experience
done
less
yet.
than the things I've already played, it was new, and I like having new experiences, whether it be going back to a game on my backlog or playing a brand new game that came out. I love just playing a new game.
And frankly, I'm kind of embarrassed to be making an Elden Ring video without having this one very important credential. I mentioned before that a boss doesn't beat you when it kills you, it only beats you if you quit. Melania, Blade of Mikola, is the only boss who beat me. And
Lamau, imagine. I've never quit on a Souls game boss. Never ever, never will, never will, never will, never will. Never ever ever have never given up. Never will, I never will. Well, have I? No, I haven't. There's been ones where I've been close. But the only boss within recent memory that I've given up on is not a Souls game boss. It's a Monster Hunter boss. It was the Planetus fight, Omega Planetus in Monster Hunter Wilds. That was basically a sign to me that Monster Hunter Wilds is going in a direction where I'm not going to be able to play it anymore on the new level of difficulty that is now being implemented into the game. That's what that was, a signpost for me, is that this game is no longer being made for me. And so will most likely never play Monster Hunter Wilds ever again, which is a shame. Because if the difficulty of Omega Planetus is the difficulty of Monster Hunter Wilds going forward, I can't play Monster Hunter Wilds. That was way too hard for me. I dedicated like 3 days to that fight, like 10 hours each day, and I just couldn't fucking do it. I couldn't do it solo. I couldn't do it in groups. That fight was way too hard for me. I got it to the final phase several times. I just couldn't do it. That is the only boss within recent memory that I've given up on. And because of how hard it was, I will most likely never play Monster Hunter Wilds ever again. Because I guarantee you every single monster they add from now on is going to be that difficulty or harder. So, why would I ever go back to the game now? The game's no longer being made for me. Every update until that, it was like, okay, yeah, this game's still being updated with new monsters. They feel great to play. I'm having fun with it. And then that one was added. And it's like, okay, well, the game's no longer being made for me. The game's now being made for, like, the top 5% of players. And, I'll go play something else. If the game's not being made for me, then I won't play it. It's as simple as that. And it's unfortunate. But, truly, it was, just not fun. Like, it was a level of difficulty that just wasn't fun to play. Like, I'm okay with challenging fights. That went to a point where it was just, it didn't feel fair. It didn't feel fun. It didn't feel balanced. And, it just wasn't enjoyable. And if I'm not having fun, why would I keep playing?
I know that Melania is supposedly not just one of the most difficult bosses that From Software has ever produced, but some people even hold her up as one of the most difficult challenges in gaming's history. And
She's hard, but the thing is, she's nowhere near I wouldn't say nowhere near. She's not FromSoft's hardest boss, even when she came out. Even when she came out, Orphan of Kos was still harder. Orphan of Kos, until the Elden Ring DLC, was still the hardest boss FromSoft had ever made, in my opinion. Consort Radahn, I would say, is the only boss that FromSoft has made that is harder than Orphan of Kos. And even then, I don't know if that's the case anymore. I imagine it still is. But I've only ever fought pre-nerf Consort Radahn. I've never fought him after he's been nerfed. I imagine he's still harder than Orphan of Kos, though. But, yeah. Even when Melania came out, though, she was not the hardest FromSoft boss. She definitely was the hardest thing I had ever done up to that point, because Elden Ring was my first Souls game. But right after Elden Ring, I played Bloodborne. And Orphan of Kos showed me that I would do anything to be fighting Melania again. I would fucking do anything, man. And for literally, like, throughout all the Souls games, and I was going through all of them, even by the time I finished Sekiro, I was like, yeah, Orphan of Kos was still the hardest one. And then the Elden Ring DLC came out, and wow. Consort Radahn. Throughout all the Elden Ring DLC, I was hoping that one of the bosses would surpass Orphan of Kos, and Consort Radahn did. And I wasn't prepared for how much it would surpass Orphan of Kos. That is still the hardest boss I've ever played. That is still a fair boss. There have been harder fights I played in games, but those fights I would say just don't feel fair or fun to play. Consort Radahn is like the hardest boss I've ever played in a game that feels fair. Like, technically, I've played harder fights in Monster Hunter games, but I would argue those fights just aren't fair because Monster Hunter games aren't necessarily meant to be one-on-one fair fights. They're kind of meant to be bullshit. They're kind of meant to have bullshit hitboxes and be unfair, which is kind of why I fall off of Monster Hunter games once you get to the harder difficulties in those, because it's literally the antithesis of a Souls game boss, where it's like a Souls game boss is a one-on-one, and it's completely fair, it's completely balanced, it's a one-on-one fight between two motherfuckers, you and the boss, and you're evenly matched. The boss can kill you super easily, and you can also kill the boss once you learn it super easily. It's an even fight when it comes to Souls games bosses. Some of them are just harder to learn than others. Monster Hunter is the opposite of that, where it's never an even fight. You will get your shit pushed in, but because it's an online game and you're doing it with other people, that's where the balance comes into play. But in order to do that, you have to have like a full team of people who know what the fuck they're doing, and that's never gonna fucking happen if you're just matching with randoms in Monster Hunter. So sucks to be me, I guess. But I don't know. Usually when I talk about hardest bosses, I usually don't think of Monster Hunter monsters, just because those are different. Those are very different. Those aren't like meant to be boss fights. Those are meant to be like these bullshit ass hunts. They're meant to be more akin to like a raid, I feel like, than like an actual boss.
I can't say for sure if that's true. I know for me, she is the only boss in any game I've ever played that I haven't been able to beat.
Has this motherfucker played the Elden Ring DLC? How old is this video? Because he hasn't showed like any DLC footage, and him talking about Melania being the one day ago. Weird. Melania's the only boss he's ever walked away from, but he's played the DLC supposedly, because if he's never walked away from a boss and he's played the DLC, that means he's never walked away from Consort Radahn, but he walked away from Melania, who is infinitely easier than Consort Radahn.
Through my first playthrough, and I rammed my head against that wall for...
Melania is easier than a lot of the bosses in the DLC. There's like... Okay, not a lot, but there's like a handful of bosses in the DLC that are way harder than Melania. Like at least At least 2.
enough for me to start enjoying the game less and less each time I got on. And I don't know if it was an issue with the build I had or my strategy, or I just wasn't good enough, but I just could not break through. Getting more and more.
Melania was very hard for me. And I will admit, the first time I played Elden Ring, I used Mimic Tear a lot on my first run through. But then, on New Game Plus, when I was going for the other ending, I didn't use Mimic Tear a single time. Fought Melania that time again, so that way I could dual wield Melania's swords, because I didn't know that you could duplicate remembrances. No, wait, I did know, but I already used all of the bells to duplicate shit by the time I fought Melania. Melania was like one of the last things I did. So I wanted another one of her swords, so I fought her again on New Game Plus. That time I didn't use a Mimic Tear. I didn't use any Mimic Tears my second time through. Third time through, didn't use any Mimic Tears either, and then in the DLC I didn't use any Mimic Tear. I only used a Mimic Tear my first time through Elden Ring because it was my first Souls game. The Mimic Tear is essentially easy mode. it has been nerfed since then, but it's still incredibly good. Nowadays, if I were to replay Elden Ring, I would only ever use the Mimic Tear in gank fights where you have to fight like 2 or 3 bosses at the same time. Because in my viewpoint, if the game's going to throw 2 to 3 bosses at me, Mimic Tear is only making the boss more fun. I don't have fun with gank fights, so I might as well just throw the Mimic Tear out and actually have it feel more fair. If I were to replay Elden Ring, I would use the Mimic Tear for gank fights, just because I feel like that is the best case for it. But I know the first time through I did use the Mimic Tear on Melania, and it made her way easier. The second phase, though, it didn't make any easier, because my Mimic Tear would die at the beginning of the second phase with the giant explosion. The first phase, though, it makes it very easy, because you can just kind of stun her. Like, you wait for your Mimic Tear attack, then you wait, then you attack right after the Mimic Tear, then the Mimic Tear will attack right after you, and you just kind of, like, stun lock her. In the first phase, second phase, Mimic Tear dies instantly in the giant explosion. So it didn't help at all in the second phase. And the second phase is where most of the difficulty for Melania comes from, so.
Frustrated, certainly.
But I have beaten her 2 times since then on New Game Plus 1 and New Game Plus. Oh, was I in New Game Plus 3 when I did the DLC? I think I was. No. I beat the game. I beat the game on New Game Plus. I went into New Game Plus 2 to get the third ending, and then I stayed in New Game Plus 2. So the highest difficulty I've beaten Melania on is New Game Plus 2, and then I did all the DLC on New Game Plus 2 on that same save. So, yeah. And the DLC on New Game Plus 2 felt amazing. It felt really balanced. I know a lot of people were saying some parts of the DLC were pretty easy on just default New Game. New Game Plus 2 felt great. I'm going to be honest. I was really worried going into the DLC on New Game Plus 2, because I was worried, oh, maybe it'll be too hard. Maybe it won't be balanced for New Game Plus. But it felt more balanced for New Game Plus, if anything. It felt like they expected you to go in there with New Game Plus. So I had a lot of fun on New Game Plus. And it kind of like washed away any fears I have of doing. I shouldn't have been scared in the first place, because every other DLC and every other Souls game I've also done on New Game Plus. I did that in Dark Souls 1, I believe. No, Dark Souls 1 I did it on just New Game. Dark Souls 3 I did it on New Game. Okay, actually none of them I've done on New Game Plus except Bloodborne. Bloodborne's I did on New Game Plus. New Game Plus 1. But Bloodborne's was amazing on New Game Plus, so I shouldn't have been that afraid of Elden Rings when it was coming out. And Elden Ring's coming out and then being like super fun and doable on New Game Plus 2 has now washed away any fears that I have of future FromSoft games of ever going into New Game Plus, because I know that the DLCs will still be doable and still be fun on New Game Plus. If anything, me being on New Game Plus will make them more fun, because it'll make it more challenging, and usually the DLCs are supposed to be more challenging. than the base game, and I love that. And I want the DLC to be more challenging, because by the time I'm at the end of the game of the base game, I'm super fucking powerful, I'm super over leveled, I'm crazy. Especially after going through the game like 1 or 2 times to get all the endings. I'm crazy. And I want the bosses to actually be challenging, and so I want the DLC to be balanced in for that. Anyways.
Helping either, and eventually she wore me out. I just wanted to move on to the next part of the game, so I gave in. I summoned the Mimic Tear, a tool I had not resorted to using for the entire game, and she went down after 2 attempts. It was demoralizing. After facing her that many times,
You shouldn't feel demoralized for using Mimic Tear. Miyazaki says it himself that when he plays these games, he uses Mimic Tear, he uses all these spells and stuff to make the game easier, because that's why he puts them in the game. They're meant to be used. They're meant to make the bosses easier. That's why he puts them in the game. Miyazaki himself uses them. So I don't agree with this mindset, this elitism that a lot of Souls fans have, where it's like, if you use Mimic Tears, if you use magic, if you use all these other assists, you're robbing yourself of the raw true experience, because that is part of the raw true experience. If you want to use those, that was your experience, and that is just as valid as someone who goes in there with bare fist at level 1. It's however you want to play the game. That's why these methods are put in the game. And yeah, some of them are easier than others. But that's the point. That's the fucking point. So I disagree with that statement. I still felt just as happy when I beat Melania the first time when I was using Mimic Tear. Again, I have beaten her 2 times since then without Mimic Tear. Just because I got better at the game and I was like, okay, I don't need the Mimic Tear anymore. So I stopped using it. But when I was first playing the game, I did need it. And so I used it. And I still felt just as accomplished using it as I would have without. Because to me, it wasn't about how easy or hard the fight was. It was just about overcoming this thing that previously was impossible for me to do through any means necessary. And on my second and third attempt on Melania, when I did her New Game Plus 1 and New Game Plus 2, that was just not a means that I needed anymore. I didn't need the Mimic Tear anymore, and so I didn't use it. I didn't use it anymore out of a pride thing. I just wasn't using it anymore because I didn't need it anymore. But my first run through the game on just New Game, I did need it. I was really bad. It was my first Souls game, but a New Game Plus 1, New Game Plus 2, didn't need it anymore. Never used Mimic Tear after New Game. I think I might have used it once in the DLC on like a gank fight where like I had to fight like multiple bosses at once. Just to get the fuck out of that boss. No, I remember what it was. It was one of the dragons, which there was like 1,000,000 dragons in the base game of Elden Ring. It was one of the dragons. I was just like, okay, I just want to get this fucking dragon off the map. It's the same dragon fight I fought like a dozen times. And I used the Mimic Tear to kill the dragon faster. That's like one of the only times I used the Mimic Tear the entire DLC, where I was just like, oh my god, another fucking dragon. Just fucking get it over with. I was just tired. I was just so sick of it.
Just giving up to beat her in that way, for me, was heartbreaking. It was the only time in this game that I felt truly, utterly defeated. And in every playthrough since, I've avoided her. Not because I was afraid, I wasn't, but just because I knew how much of a challenge she was, and I didn't.
I'm not afraid of Melania.
Hours of my time.
She's really hard, but she's not a fight I'm afraid of. I know a lot of people still build her up to be one of the hardest bosses. Still are like, oh my god, she's unfair. She's bullshit. Her waterfowl dance is bullshit. Her self healing is bullshit. I've never understood any of that, man. I genuinely. She's fine, man. She's chill. She's not chill, but like she's a fine fight. She's a very balanced fight in my opinion. She's very fun. She's very hard, but like there are harder FromSoft bosses. There are way harder FromSoft bosses. Hell, final boss Eliza P DLC, Arlecchino, I would say is harder than Melania. Arlecchino was fucked up, dude. Arlecchino was fucked up. I still have not, just because I didn't finish that run of Liza P where I was going through the DLC a second time. I just never finished that run that I was doing off stream. I've still never fought Arlecchino without the assist, because as part of the story, you summon in the red-haired hunter, P's mentor, Carlos' mentor, and you summon her as part of the story. And she's like a story assist, which is why you summon her, because like if you don't summon her, you actually miss out on like some like major story dialogue, and stuff. So you're supposed to summon her. But you also have the option to do it solo if you don't want to. I've never beaten Arlecchino solo. And I kind of don't want to. Because the fight was really fun with her in there. She's really fun to fight with, and I really love the Lies of P story. So to rob myself of that, of arguably the most emotional climax of the entire game, where you reach the end of the DLC, and you, as P with the memories of Carlo, fighting alongside your previous mentor to save Romeo. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god. Like, it's such an emotional climax. I would never rob myself of that, man. I will summon her every time. Every time. I don't have any pride when it comes to summoning in these games. I will summon her every time. In the same way where for story reasons, I will always summon Egon to fight Bale. Because hearing him scream, "Curse you, Bale," and going on his long fucking speech is worth it, dude. I will throw away my pride. I will summon that motherfucker every time. Every fucking time. I will never rob myself of that experience.
Knew I had to do it at some point. In my head, it's like changing the light bulb in my bathroom. Like, I am gonna do it. I haven't gotten around to it. But the truth is, I was putting it off.
I
knew
hereby
it would be
vow
frustrating. I
you
knew
will
it would be
rue
painful.
this
And
day.
I didn't want the smoke. In other words, I had forgotten that it's worth it. I had forgotten what this had felt like. But on this last playthrough, I decided to go back to the Halleck tree to finish what I should have done years ago. Once again, I would not leave this ditch until I did the impossible.
Fears manifest. Melania, Blade of Mikola. I am Melania, Blade of Mikola.
So here I was again.
And I have
round
never
two.
known
Just like
defeat.
before, I got absolutely annihilated.
Which she fucking lied,
Even
by the
after
way.
Hundreds of hours in the lands
Radon
between
was
and
beating her
years
shit
of
in.
experience against
Only
every
reason
boss
she
the game
didn't
could throw at
lose
me,
is 'cause
Melania was
she
still
blew
every
up
bit the monster
and
I
then
remembered she
made
was. The
Radon
simple
into, like,
fact
a
that she
mindless
heals
zombie.
Whenever she hits you means that
But
making
Radon
any
pushed her
mistake
shit
at all
in,
is
dude.
incredibly punishing. And the fact that there's nothing else in the game that really prepares you for the flurry of moves she throws at you means that you are going to get hit. You are going to have to painstakingly relearn strategies you've spent the whole game relying on. And just when you've finally started to figure it out, guess what? New phase, new moves, full heal, wings, Scarlet Rot. the
Not really new
works.
moves.
And
No, no,
all I
no.
can
Second phase is mostly the same moves. They just have, just have added Scarlet Rot effects to them. It's mostly the same moves. That's the thing with FromSoft second phases, is that most of the time, they are 90% exactly the same as the first phase. They just look way crazier and do way more damage and have way larger AoEs. Consort Radon is the same fucking way, and it's why I defend that fucking fight. People act like Consort Radon is unfair and bullshit, but when you fucking look at the attack animations and actually pay attention to what the boss is doing, you realize 90% of his moves are exactly the same as the first phase. It's just now, he punishes you for dodging away from him. Every single one of the light pillar attacks in Consort Radon, if you just dodge towards him, they won't hit you. Every single fucking one. Consort Radon's second phase is almost exactly the same as phase 1, but now if you were dodging away from him instead of towards him in phase 1, he now punishes you for that. You will not run away. You will not get away. You will stay right fucking next to him, because if you don't, light pillar comes out of the ground and you get fucking punished for it and die. And people hate it for that reason. People are like, there's too many light pillars, there's too much going on, I can't see anything. You don't need to see anything. You don't need to see the animation through the light pillars because you know the animation already from the first phase. If you've learned that first phase, you already know how to dodge that attack. You're just doing it wrong. I love Consort Radon. I will defend that fight till the day I fucking die, because it's genuinely a skill issue. Every complaint anyone has ever had about that fight is a genuine fucking skill issue. It's the one time where it's true. I don't care. I know I sound like one of those FromSoft elitists I complain about all the time, but it's true in this case scenario. It 100% is, because most of the second phase is exactly the same as the second. It's exactly the same. It just is.
think was, again,
I don't know how I'm gonna beat that.
How on earth is this fair? But this time, I kept my composure.
Melania's fight is incredibly fair. It's a super fair fight. People, again, it's just a skill issue.
Why? That's horseshit.
Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating.
There was nothing
but
horseshit
I
there.
didn't
You just
quit.
did dodge.
Every failed attempt, every half-second mistimed
Learn to
roll,
dodge,
every
buddy.
brutal phase 2 death. it
Hell,
all
learn to
slowly
block. You can
started
bring
to
a
click.
shield in.
Oh my god.
I wasn't getting lucky, I was learning. That slow, painful, beautiful process that From Software games do better than anything else, it was happening again.
I, Melania, Blade of Mikola, and I have never known defeat. I am Melania. Blade. Dude, I love Melania. I have, and I'm so proud of this. I have all of the Elden Ring statues now because of at Too Many Games. I saw this Elden Ring Collector's Edition. I saw this at Too Many Games, and it was way cheaper than it is online. Like, if you look for this thing online, it's pretty fucking expensive. Let me hide the screen just in case something doesn't show. Like, here's an eBay sale for $430. I got mine for like $150. And it was opened. It wasn't sealed. But my mindset is, well, I'm going to open it anyways. I'm not going to leave it sealed. So who cares if it was opened? And everything was in there. It was like 150, 200, one of the two. Way cheaper than it is normally online, where it's normally over $400. Hell, it was sold for 250. So it was like, well, that's 250 euros, but it was sold for more than what I got it for, basically. 200 euros. This is the Night Rain one. I do have the Night Rain one, and I do have this one here as well. I have all three of the Elden Ring ones. So I have the Mesmer statue. I have the Melania statue, which is one of my favorite figures I have. I have the Wilder statue from the Night Rain one. I have like a huge fucking like Souls game shrine over there. And these figures are huge. So it's like, and they all come in like these big displays too, like this display here. So I have like these just big cardboard displays. The only one that didn't come with the display is Wilder, but the other two came with displays. So I just have like all these giant figures lined up. I have Melania, Wilder, Mesmer. I have a Dark Souls 3 one. Dark Souls 3, Lord of Cinder statue. It's none of these ones. It's the collector's edition statue, which you would think would be the first one to pop up. You would think. It's this one. He's normally holding the two swords he dual wields. This one right here. This one I also got at Too Many Games. There's another Dark Souls 3 statue of the giant in the game. This one is one that comes with a display very similar to the Elden Ring ones. This one's a different one, the Prestige Edition. I don't care for this one because this one is literally just a random boss that isn't even that important to the game. And this one's the fucking Lord of Cinder, man. Like, this one's way cooler in my opinion. Like, Yorm the Giant, I think is what this one is. It goes for over $2,000 now. That's crazy. That's crazy. This I got for like 150. This is a pretty sick Lord of Cinder statue. Why are there so many Yorm the Giant statues? Yorm the Giant is not an important boss in the game. Like, he's not... I don't get why they would make it for the Prestige Edition. Yorm. I don't get that. That doesn't make sense to me. But, what was the Bloodborne Collector's Edition? I've looked it up before. Yeah, it didn't come with a figure. There's the Nightmare Edition. There is this Lady Maria figure. Lady Maria figure. I don't think that came with... Sorry, my F key doesn't work sometimes. I don't think that came with the collector's edition. Yeah, this is like a third-party thing. Yeah. All these Lady Maria statues. Yeah, see, it's by like this thing. It's not actually like officially licensed, which is sad. $20? This is definitely like an off-brand one. What the fuck? $20? What do you mean? Yeah, it's AliExpress. Okay. It's an off-brand one. So it'd be dog shit quality. I do want a Lady Maria figure, but the sad part is that there's no official ones. They're all like third-party ones that are either like $2,000 or $20 and shit quality. There's no like official ones. I think like this one's official. Like the posable one, maybe? But I don't like posable figures. The posable one does come with a chair, though. So I could still do, like, that chair pose. Maybe I'll get this posable one someday. I don't know how much it is. Let me see. Let me click on this Amazon link. That's pretty pricey. But I think it's the best Lady Maria figure that you can get. I think so. I mean, it costs the same as the other Souls game figures I have. It's like $200. It's just I haven't bought a figure in a long time, and I usually only do it at Too Many Games. And that's because I save up a lot of money for Too Many Games with the intention of I'm going to waste this on some merchandise. And so at Too Many Games, it's easier for me to buy shit like that. When I'm just sitting in the comfort of my own home and I'm looking at the price on my monitor, I'm like, that's a little harder to commit to. You know? I actively save up for Too Many Games every year and like set money aside and like, because I want to be able to buy overpriced shit there. That's the whole point of going to a convention, is to buy cool shit, meet voice actors, meet cool people, you know? I've met Super Eye Patch Wolf there. Super Eye Patch Wolf. And they were awesome. Whoa, I haven't seen them with brown hair in a long time. Black hair, whatever. Whoa, that's weird. I haven't seen them without their, like, platinum hair in a long time. They've had platinum hair for, I think, several years at this point. They look way better with the platinum hair. Maybe I'm just more used to it, but... yeah, I think I'm just maybe more used to it. Nah, it looks better. Who am I kidding? Who am I kidding? They had a U2s? I didn't know that. It's a pretty cool looking one too. I like the U2s that are not humans. I think U2s that are humans look really ugly. It's a cool looking notebook. I bought this one because I think the cover is really funny. I love the art style and like the... Dude. Oh, that's a poster? I was literally just about to say, dude, I would buy a poster of this. They literally sell a poster of this. Okay. Interesting. Might buy that from them. Let's go to Super Eye Patches. I've been talking about Super Eye Patch Wolf a lot on stream lately. I've been kind of hyper fixated on their content lately. I've always loved their content, but I've been like watching their content a lot lately, like rewatching videos. I've been watching a lot of their second channel, Regular Eye Patch Wolf, and like the podcast that they're a part of, and I usually don't watch those. I usually just watch their main channel videos. But I've been watching everything lately. Their merch is so cool, dude. It's just a lot of this I wouldn't wear in public. This one I would, up here, which is why I bought this one. This one's cute. Especially a lot of the ones with this clown character, just because her boobies are really huge, and I don't... Any of the ones with, like, the big racks showing off on them, it's like, alright, well... I don't necessarily want to wear that while like, going to Walmart, you know? Don't necessarily want to... This one's pretty nice. I like that. Again, I didn't know that they sold that as a poster. Kind of want it now. It's huge though, and I don't know where I would put it. I don't have much room on my walls. I already have posters everywhere. Oh, this one's nice too. This one's nice. I want a better look of this one. Oh, look at that. It's really awesome. Wow.